All right, Jeremy, I can't see where you are on the Zoom, but I know you're here. So come on and say a quick hello.
Hey team, how are we doing? Yeah, good, thank you. Just to let you know, I've got some slides I can't share currently, so if you could make me a co-host, that'd be super.
I just screen share, so you're good.
Amazing. Hey guys, thank you so much, and especially 3 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. They're talking about your blood sugar levels just kind of leveling off at about 3 or 4 o'clock, depending on what time you've actually had your lunch. So bear with me. I want to make this kind of interactive as well. I'll check out some questions. If you've got any questions, again, just throw them out there. I'll go at pace. So if you've got any notes or anything, just scribble them down and then just ask the question. I think first of all, yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I think the people on this call are the people that I work with the most, SaaS leaders, right? Because we, from a SaaS background myself, but also a couple of things. I'm a co-founder and director of my own accelerator. I don't operate in that anymore. I work for Zendesk. So I've worked with startups since 2015. And last year, was it? Year before? Last year, I worked with my first ever unicorn and helped them to actually get to there. So yes, there are a few hints and tips along the way. I'm going to talk to you about the Zendesk story and kind of throw in a few kind of key things that we did at Zendesk, and how that could help you to grow your startup and to scale it at pace, certainly with CX in mind, because that's who we are. So let me share up my screen and let's go for it. Obviously, I'd love to see faces. It's always more interesting when you can interact with faces. So if you do have a camera available, please put it on. That'd be great. Let me get you over here. There we go. And a few familiar faces already as well. Hey, Juan, how are we doing? Okay, cool. So I think I've just introduced myself. I'm a partnership manager at Zendesk, and it's my role to partner with accelerators, with VCs, and to actually go out there and add some value. It's not my role to sell Zendesk, you'll be pleased to hear. And I used to hate it when people used to do that when they came into my accelerator. So I am not selling Zendesk. Hopefully what I can talk about within the story might actually do that for me. You never know, we'll see. But we'll see, let's crack on. A lot of the content I've taken comes from a book written by Mikhail Spana, who is our CEO, was our CEO. And it's a warts and all perspective on growing a SaaS business from kitchen table through to IPO and back to private. The private bit isn't in there because this was released before we went private again. But if you want a good read and a good, here's the things and the pitfalls to avoid kind of story, this is it. Startup Land. You can get it. I mean, you can get it on audiobook as well. But we're going to look at the early days. We're going to look at how they raised funds, moving to America and what they did, and link it all into CX principles and why you should have a CX strategy. And when I talk about CX, I mean customer experience as a whole. So that's the journey, the interactions you have with them, communication you have with them, their experience, everything. So CX is that whole encompassing angle on anything to do with customer, and so on. But I want to keep it fairly open forum. So stick your hand up as we go along, and I'll try and answer as quick as I can to make sure you get the maximum value from this. If you haven't heard of us, we build business software for customer engagement. We're best-in-class software. And if you follow us or you can kind of see what's going on at the moment, there's an awesome, grab your popcorn, because there's an awesome debate and battle going on between us and Freshdesk on LinkedIn. And it's part of the strategy that Zendesk have just taken on since we went private, to actually go after our competitors, which we haven't done before. So yeah, that's interesting, but I can come into that and I can add some more thoughts around that as we go. But yeah, jump on LinkedIn, grab your popcorn, because it's pretty interesting. Okay. Where are we now? We're headquartered in San Francisco, over 160,000 customers, which kind of comes down to around 1.4 billion yearly interactions. And I don't think I put it on there, but that equates to around, yeah, I think it is. It's not on there. That equates to around 1.2 billion ARR. which is a big old organization, 16 global offices, and we're across many different languages as well, which is important, especially when running a SaaS business, because having different languages allows you to be 24/7 and on and global before you're global. So really important. If you don't have other languages interacting with your platform or the way you communicate, I would look into that straight away. A few of the different offices. Back to the story itself, which is, it fascinates me. 3 guys around a table knew each other from business, but were also friends as well. In 2007, they got around a table and decided that they wanted to create something that was customer service based, so customer service software. And let's go into this a little bit. I'm going to particularly focus into Mikkel because he was our CEO, but also he was still in the business up until last November. Last November. So he's the most relevant person to talk about. Morten was the back-end expert. He was the engineer. Alexander covered the front end, but he was the one that built a customer-centric approach from the get-go through simplicity. And that you'll be able to see that throughout the story, because making things simple was a real key to Zendesk's success, and keeping it simple through growth and scale as well. And even now, when you look at Zendesk, it is plug and play. A lot of it is no code, and it all fits in an easy to use operating system. So definitely a tip for you guys is, whatever you do, make it simple, make it easy for a customer to interact with, and get straight to value as soon as they start interacting with it. That time to value I will talk about a little bit, but that should be at the top of your mind when building a SaaS product, is time to value for a customer. How quickly can they get your product and get value from it? And then Mikkel, who brought this kind of understanding from a few different worlds, about the customer service domain, and in his words, an impatience to get things done. Mikkel actually created some customer interaction tools. Firstly, he created a portal which he then sold on Magic Eyes. So do you remember those Magic Eyes where you kind of get an image and you look at it and go cross-eyed, and then you come back out and you see a 3D image? Well, he was teaching people how to do that and had a number of them on this platform. For me, I can't do them. They go in. So the image that's supposed to come out goes in. So I see an inverted image. If somebody can tell me why, I'd be very interested to know why. Maybe Mikkel can. I'll have to get hold of him. But he built that, and then he sold that off and built a platform for tickets and events, for media and for concerts and things like that over in Denmark. And that was the first thing that he really kind of got an idea of how people want to interact with a SaaS business, what the value was to somebody, which again will come down into in 2023, like what are the trends that we're looking at, and what can we see out there that you should be thinking of when building something like this. So he sold that off. He actually went off to work for a German corporate, and that's where he decided that he could do this a lot better. The part of the big German corporate that he worked for was part of this customer service center, and it was awful. So what they did, they got around a table and they thought, well, let's focus on something simple. And they picked up on the most boring thing they could find. And that was customer service software. Because everybody was really focused back in the tech boom about creating the next big shiny thing. Nobody was really focused back onto the nuts and bolts of how actually customers interact, and making that quicker, decreasing the time to value, increasing customer satisfaction scores, and understanding a journey to get help or support through a startup. So that's where they focused. They picked the boring thing and did it really, really simply. The other thing that they did was play to strengths within the team. They all had a customer-centric backgrounds, so it was obvious that they were going to go into something around customer service. And if you're sat there thinking, well, I want you to sit there and think about, are you doing what you love doing every day? If that's not the case, then I would say it's time to get off the merry-go-round and go and find something that you are really passionate about. Because that's what they did. They played to their strengths within the team. They did what they did. They did what they loved doing every single day, which made it easier for them. In 2009, Zendesk had a few hundred customers, and again, I'll come into what they did around those first few hundred customers, because it's important about what you should be doing or thinking about when building that out. But there was a few lessons that they learned, especially around fundraising, which I'm sure Anthony has been talking to you about just before this. There's nothing he doesn't know about, all that stuff. So interesting. They learned a valuable lesson with their first investment, and actually they had money on the table from an angel, a local, actually he was Dutch, he wasn't local to Copenhagen. And they were really, really happy that they got money on the table. And almost pressed the button on actually signing up for the first investment, but they grilled the data room. He asked questions which were more about his return and more about, which don't get me wrong, every investor worth their salt is going to ask about return, right? But what they were talking about was things like picking holes in the business to devalue it for their own gain. And they certainly realized this. And actually, they realized that Zendesk itself was running out of money and was trying to weaken them to get the upper hand with the negotiations. They realized that and said no to them at an early stage. So yeah, or if you've got money on the table, you don't have to take it. Through into 2009, a bit later down the line, they got their first term sheet, 1.5 million from Charles River Ventures. They said no to that as well, much to Mikkel's pain. He actually said no to it. They got round the table and agreed that actually this wasn't, again, worth it. The terms were too demanding, and the terms on that sheet were more in the VC's favor than actually helping to grow Zendesk as a business. They said no to it. And that's when the first investor into Zendesk actually jumped on board and spent time with the business, mucked in, actually went to where they were based, and actually proved that the goals of the VC were aligned with the goals of Zendesk and helped them out for a short period of time. That is the kind of investor that I like. If you're going to get investment or you're looking to get investment, build that great relationship with them, understand the values that they have, because that's what Zendesk did really, really well at the early stage. They then obviously said yes to that first term sheet. Well, it's the second term sheet amended, and took that investment because they understood their investor more. Early 2009, they took that. They moved to Boston, where their investors were, and that was so that they could get the support and the technical help to build what they were trying to build. Also, their first few customers were mainly US based, so they were moving to the US to make sure that they could take advantage of their customers' locations and be very local to them. And have a great relationship with them on their time zone. Just FYI, moving to America is not as easy as just going over there. And I'm happy to talk to anybody about the ins and outs and warts and all versions of how to do it. But it took 4 separate lawyers, 4 separate law firms to actually get the deal over the line in different languages, which was the first worry that they had, but there was plenty more. Once they'd moved to Boston, they set up their own, they set up their HQ, remained their top co in Denmark at the time, before actually moving their top go to Silicon Valley, which is where the fish were. They went fishing where the fish were. They were noted. One of our first ever customers, big customers, is Twitter. And a lot of the tech boom coming out of Silicon Valley was where our customers were. So we grew up with the likes of Twitter, Zoom, Shopify, all of these guys. We grew up with them. And if you can grow with your customer, then that's a great starting point, because if you can retain them and grow with them, then they'll always look to you as somebody who supported them in their growth. That is why I'm in role at Zendesk, because we see that the earlier we can help people adopt Zendesk, but the earlier we can add value to their journey, the more likely they are to turn around later down the line and go, do you know what? That guy from Zendesk was cool. He helped me out. He gave me a few tidbits. I might use Zendesk. So it's about adding value to your customer rather than selling to them. A quick story. After they closed their seed round, they publicly celebrated with a press release. Now, Christoph, who was one of the first actual seed investors into Zendesk, and the first angel round that they took on seed, he put a memo out to the network in San Francisco, mainly, and pitched to two big organizations, GigaOM and TechCrunch. GigaOM came back straight away and said, amazing, we want to run exclusive. Malik, on Malik, who the company is named after, big tech org, actually did the interview himself. And right before they released and ran that exclusive, because they hadn't heard from TechCrunch, and if you could get into TechCrunch at that time, then you will make it. You will be in the good books in Silicon Valley, and they're almost like the gatekeepers to get there. But let me tell you what happened. So TechCrunch reached out and they said, well, we want to run this story. Give us all the details. And Christoph went back and said, well, you didn't respond. So we gave the story to On Malik, who are a competitor of TechCrunch. Michael Arrington, who is essentially the godfather of TechCrunch in Silicon Valley and almost that gatekeeper, pretty much said, don't ever email me again. Don't get in contact with me. Do not pass go. This is coming from the book. So Mikkel tried to step in and kind of smooth things over between Christoph and Arrington by emailing some funny remarks, which did not go down very well at all. So when there's in the middle of a spat, probably not the best idea to throw in a load of snarky and funny comments. Because he came back with, well, take me off your email list. This is not a joke. Don't ever call me again. Mikkel thought that they'd just been blacklisted from Silicon Valley and would never make it there. I guess the consolation came when On Malik did publish a nice post. It's not sexy like some social networks, but it's useful and fully featured. Zendesk would fall into our small is really beautiful category of startups. And if you go back to what I talked about earlier about them creating simplicity, that was the best thing somebody could have written about them. Small and beautiful, easy to use, and everything else that comes with that. They went on to raise 6 million in a Series B through Benchmark VC over in the States, back into Silicon Valley, where they'd already moved to. And again, Benchmark were involved and obviously put board seats, but also helped out strategically, opening up networks to sell to, but also to build relationships with. All well and good, but what does that mean for you guys? You know, what did they do that you can get hold of and work with? Well, first off, there's definitely the VC lessons in there. You should stay focused on the customer regardless of how much the VC rolls in or whichever growth hacking strategy they have among rounds. Do not forget that the customer is the one that's making the decision to buy or to help them live their lives or to overcome a problem or a challenge that they have, which is why they're buying from you. Focus in on that and think about the value proposition that you drive towards your customer. What do I mean by value proposition? Come on, let's get everybody woken up here. What do I mean by value proposition? Come on, somebody come off mute.
Put it in the chat, or just, yeah, take yourself off mute.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on, who's going to be the brave one?
You can share your value proposition or add a question that you have around it too.
I think it's about the outcome. The solution is the outcome for the end user, not the tool that you've built.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Interesting. Yeah. It's about the outcome for the end user, not the thing that you built. And I would agree with that. I guess the definition for us is the set of benefits and values that you promise to deliver to your customer, as you said there, the benefits or the outcomes to your customer, and it's not the thing, right? And that was really important. Everything that Zendesk did was about the value proposition, segmenting user bases as well, understanding that people were using them in different ways to get value in different ways. If you can segment your user base and understand why people are buying from you, that allows you to then understand how to add more value to their journey and understand what is the next thing to add onto the product roadmap and add value to the customer, for sure. Really simple one that I had back in the days of accelerators. We had a team doing coconut oil. And I think I said, I can't remember if I said this at the accelerator, but they didn't realize that they had two different user groups, but one user group was actually using it for cooking, as you'd expect. Coconut oil is great for cooking with, healthy alternative, but they didn't realize about the other group of people that were actually using it as a hair product to strengthen hair and to give it that lovely natural shine. They didn't understand that. They got quite far down the line with it. Once they actually realized that they had two separate user groups, that split their marketing strategy, that split their communications, and allowed them to focus in on either segment and grow sales. But it also helped them retain customers because they were talking the language of the value that they were deriving for each customer. So definitely, there's a huge know your customer thing here within value proposition, but really understand the set of values and benefits that you drive towards those customers to help them overcome whatever barrier they've got, because that's what Zendesk did to understand what they should be doing next on their product roadmap. From 2009 onwards, when we had a few hundred customers, well, it was just less than, the customer-centric approach was built in from an early stage. So rules about when a trial customer's lifecycle would be in contact with the team and how they interact with people. So just picking that out, we had a trial at a really early stage for customers. So they could understand the value, understand their use case, and drop it into their own customer journey to understand why your product is good for them. Do you have a trial that people can get hold of to understand the value that you can create for them? One thing is good, but what that helped with was it built the culture in the team. It built a culture of customer service first, and it built the team to understand each and every customer's needs. What also helped with that, they called every company that signed up for a new trial and tried to forge a relationship with them. How you doing? What can I help with? Why have you come to us? Any customer that comes on using a trial is a potential paying customer, but also at the same time, they are your biggest source of insight. If you can gain insight from customers existing or future, then that again will fall straight back into your product roadmap and help you understand where you need to go next. They pride themselves on being casual, not trying to sell, but trying to build that relationship, which really helped in the early stages. And we still do that. We don't try and sell. Yes, we have sales teams, right? Don't get me wrong. And people will try and sell to you from those sides. But everything on the periphery is about adding value and understanding our customer. So then we can then add more value to their journey. And we still, to this day, experiment with the format and structure of interactions all the time. A little thing there I put up that 70% of startups don't have a formal CX strategy. I'm going to ask you if you have one in a minute. One of the things that came out of the early stages was that A/B tested some template emails versus personalized and error-ridden emails to customers. What do you think the interaction rate was? How do you think it differed from the perfect template to the personalized and error-ridden one? Again, check it in the comments or come off mute and give me an idea. Give me a shout. How do you think it changed interaction rates?
The error-ridden ones went a lot better because they're the human touch.
Can I add to that?
Of course you can, Adam, go.
Yeah, I would imagine that the idea of writing a personalized email is to sound like you're willing to receive responses. So if you've already written in or pre-written in the errors, then you're hoping that people would feed back to you.
Well, yeah, exactly, right? I spelled Israel wrong last week, and to around 30 VCs out in Israel. And I had a number of them come back to me with, just to let you know that Israel's actually spelled like this and not like this. But yeah, we'd love to do something. I now know how to spell Israel because that was an actual mistake I made. So, but the interaction, the interaction rate when Zendesk did it, they increased their interaction rate by 60% by having the error-ridden and personalized touch email compared to a template email that went out to everybody. A lot of the time you'll find that template emails reduce the size of fonts where the pre-filled text is and play around. Anyway, the error-ridden one's got a lot more interaction. So what we're trying to say here, be personal with your touches to your any customer, and build that relationship through the communications that you have, especially at an earlier stage. I said I was going to ask you. I think we could do a show of hands, couldn't we, on the app, on the Zoom app? But who here has a formalized CX strategy? This is great, Adam. You seem to be the only one just now. Come on.
Oh, do I have to speak again?
No, you don't know. You don't have to speak. You don't have to speak. I'm just trying to find out from everybody else. Will's a no. Purdy, no.
Very much
Okay.
in my head.
Who said that?
Yes.
Joe?
Me, Joe, yeah.
Very much in your head, yes. Okay.
And
You're
Is
not
it-
alone.
we're
if
all
you-
about customer experience, so it's sort of in our blood, but I haven't had the opportunity to formalize it or write it down.
Okay.
If you click
I said-
reactions, you can do thumbs up and thumbs down. So if you have one, put your thumbs up, and if you don't, put it down.
Yeah, please do. You're not alone, and Adam actually fits in with the 30% of startups that do have a formalized CX strategy. I'd love to see it, Adam, but I'm not going to press you on it. But the whole point is, as Joe said, we don't have time. We don't have time. We don't have money and we don't have time, certainly as a startup, but the time is the major one. Because why? Because we don't perceive the value that will come from writing a plan. Well, I'm here to kind of convert that into value and say, the more you formalize your CX strategy, the more revenue you will receive, the more profit you will make, and the more customers you will get. Why? Why am I saying that? Here's a few reasons why. Getting a formalized CX strategy helps you promote long-term customer retention. I'm going to skip over that very quickly because I've got a slide which demonstrates what I mean when you actually focus in on retention versus acquisition. It establishes brand trust in the market. Great customer experience helps to build brand trust in the market because people will talk about you in a positive light. The more you can get people to talk about you in a positive light, the more they overtake you in customer acquisition and refer and tell people about the product or service and how that's helping them. We've just talked about this to death, but it can shape your product roadmap through the feedback, the insight that you get, the value that you know that's driving, all of that stuff. It allows you to say, here is my next best, least risky move in my product roadmap. It identifies cross-sell opportunities. British Airways did this really well with me the other week. They know my preferences. They know, because I do a lot of flying, certainly in my role, but they know my preferences. And occasionally I've used points and miles and things like that to actually upgrade. And apparently I tend to upgrade 2 weeks before my flight. But they don't release those upgrade offers until around 1 week to the flight. But a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to Israel, but they sent me an earlier upgrade because they said, hey, we've noticed that you like to sit in a nicer seat. So, hey, here's a great offer that we've got for you. It was far too expensive. I didn't upgrade. But the point is, they knew me. They knew the insight. They had the insight, and they could cross-sell or upsell to me. Your opportunity to gain that insight within CX, understand your customer, to then cross-sell and upsell to them. And 100%, it helps with team culture. It helps with recruiting the right people. A value-driven, based, customer-centric model of recruitment. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you have 5 candidates that all have the same technical abilities, which one are you going to hire? You'll be looking for nuances in what they might have done in the past, or you might be looking for, I'm telling you, have a look at them from a CX perspective. If that person is customer centric and customer driven, and they want to help overcome barriers and challenges that your customer has, then they're the pick that you go for out of those same people with the same technical skills, because they are the ones that will drive value. They'll want to know how they can support driving value to your customer. I'd be really interested from the AI on this, how many times I've said value, because it just crops up so much, but it crops up in different ways. So understand that there's another way of driving value certainly in recruitment and retention. One of the other things, listen, over in the US, hiring is completely different. And I caught the back end of Anthony Rose talking about hiring salespeople. The US is completely different for hiring people. You will spend an absolute fortune, at least 3 to 4x what you do in the UK to get a good salesperson. But they're worth their weight in gold because they know the market, they know how to do business over in the US, and they can then feed that back into the business and to grow sales. Now, I'm not going to focus in on differentiations in hiring in the US, but quick anecdote: the Americans trust a customer service center that speaks English, the Queen's English or the King's English now, 10% more than they do an American or any other language. So even though you have a sales function over the US or somewhere else, if the last word is a British accent, then you've got a 10% head start on trust and relationship building, which is nuts. I can see Purdy smiling, kind of wanting to add something. Margaret smiling, nodding, and doing things there. But you can have your say in a bit as to whether that's correct or not. But that's what's out there. But sorry, I've just gone back a bit. But the whole point of this is, one of the first hires that we took on at Zendesk was somebody who had technical ability amongst other people, but what they did have was that great customer-centric model, which can help build the great culture and build a great team. And that person's still with us to this day. Right now, we're facing a lot of macro headwinds, right? There's a lot of stuff out there that's affecting how we sell our products, our cost of goods, our everything. There's a 70% higher cost of customer acquisition. That's both in B2B and direct to customer. Now, obviously, you can see that this kind of stops at around 2021, but this trend is not even flatlining, it's increasing through to 2023. We do a report every year on our customer experience trends, CX trends across the globe, with millions of interactions that we've taken, and it's a cumulative thing from 2014 onwards. But customer acquisition is on the rise. There's a 60 to 80% lower product value, which means customers' willingness to pay has declined a lot both for core features and integrations, because there's so many freemium models out there. People can get value from things at no cost. There's open source models that they can also get value from. There's so much free stuff out there. So you've got to work really, really hard to make sure that you're acquiring customers. But where should you focus your attention? Is it on acquisition or is it retention? What do you think the result would be if we actually improved each side? So we improved acquisition by 1% or we improved retention by 1%? How do you think that affects revenue?
Massively. I know, because it's core for our business. If you spend I can't remember the exact percentages, but a tiny percentage of what you spend on acquisition on retention, you will massively increase your client revenue and client base over the amount that you spent on acquisition in proportion. So it's, you know, retention all day long.
Thank you, Jo. Yeah, she's not wrong. It's 3.9x. Yeah, so 3.9x return if you spent 1%, if you actually increase retention by 1%. What I'm telling you right now is that you don't go and stop acquisition. That'd be silly, right? But there are other means of increasing your acquisition without you adding a load of work to it. The retention is where you'll build your revenue from, the cross-selling opportunities, the lifetime value of the customer, the word of mouth, the trust, the brand trust, and all of that, which actually drives people to converse about you and your product and evangelize the next cohort of acquisitions onto your platform. Retention 3.9x on revenue. Yeah, obviously it leads to lifetime value, greater lifetime value, better NPS, net promoter score within your customer base, or CSAT scores, customer satisfaction scores, which is always going to lead to greater profit. So a little bit more about the Zendesk story. In 2014, we moved up to around a few thousand customers. That sounds amazing. There were 600 plus employees. You can see there's 42,000 customers, 100 million in revenue in. We also increased, we actually IPO'd in 2014 on 20th of May. And there were 40 of our closest and first staff members in attendance in New York to ring the bell. One thing we did wrong. We IPO'd, which is fantastic. We floated, share price was great, it increased. And through to, I think, again, back into November last year when we actually went private, a little bit before that when they actually were going through the acquisition, but it wasn't public. The share price was up at $130, which was phenomenal. We actually fixed when we came back off and privately down at 75, I think it was. But that was for the market awesome, because our competitors in the market were actually dropping significantly, and we wanted to fix it and get off the stock exchange to build, streamline, and to go back. But what we did, and this was in 2015, we had a price increase. There was no price increase since 2011, and they thought, well, actually, this was Mikkel's version of events. He said, well, because we hadn't had a price increase, we were going to do it blanket across, and do it for all customers. It was one of the biggest mistakes he ever made, especially for SaaS subscription model based businesses. He lost a load of customers from it. And broke the trust in the cycle. What he realized was that he actually had to go back, take a step back, and redact the price increase and just do it for new customers, because the old customers were getting the value from what they've been given, and expected roadmap functions to get better and increase without an added cost. he had huge backlash, especially on Twitter, which was one of our number one customers. Huge backlash across Twitter. So I had to redact that and go back and think about how they could actually increase prices as they went along. What they were trying to sell was price. What they were trying to do is do a price increase, but actually what they needed to do was help the customer understand the value add that they were adding with the features that they were adding to enable them to go, do you know, why wouldn't I buy that added feature at the cost that you're giving it to me at? Back into that value proposition and understanding what you're delivering to your customer in search of the benefits. 2023 trends. What do customers value most in great customer experience or good customer experience? All of these add up to 100, by the way. So what do you think the biggest percentage was that people value most in customer experience?
Personalization.
Personalization is high. Not the highest.
I think that quick and seamless don't need to repeat themselves. I'd say was the highest.
Yeah. So think about any time you've had a problem with any service, you just want to get it sorted and get back to whatever you were doing. It's all about the quick and seamless approach. They don't want to repeat themselves. They just want to get in and off, get back to that thing we were talking about earlier, time to value. So if you can have a quick and seamless approach to customer experience and have that customer journey where they can get onto your platform, get the support, get the help, overcome their challenge or their problem, buy what they want to buy and get off again, that's what they value most in a good customer experience. 27% empathetic. Now with the rise of AI and I would say non-empathy based products or tools, you can see how much 27% value within empathy. So that customer-centric approach that we were talking about is really fundamental to a good customer experiences in your customer's eyes. So add that personalization and that empathy approach, the human touch, and make sure it's across all of your interactions. And that omni-channel approach is also quite relevant. What do I mean by omni-channel approach? I'll give you this one so we can get into some questions in a bit. So omni-channel approach, meeting your customer where they want to be met. I.e., if they're on WhatsApp for business, you should be on WhatsApp for business. If they've got email, then it's Gmail Suite you got to plug into. If it's MSN Messenger or whatever that might look like, you have to meet your customer where they are, because 14% value in good customer experience the omni-channel approach, meet them where they are. So a few tidbits from certainly where you need to be thinking about within CX for where your customer base is. So 0 to 100, you should be talking to everybody using your product. Through the trial, through whatever you've got going on, you should be talking to them. Learn what makes customers happy and angry. Feed that back into the internal people within your organization and amplify those voices so everyone knows warts and all, how they can add to drive value to a customer within the organization. And please put this on the table every week. Customers should be the center of every conversation for at least an hour a week in your organization. 100 to 1,000, by the way, again, this is cumulative. So you now ticked off all that stuff. And this is the stuff on top of this that you should be doing. Get your customer conversations connected regardless of where they are, that omni-channel approach. Invest in resources to building out a help center. That doesn't mean having a 200 people per call center. What we're talking about, kind of the lowest form of this, is building out self-help tools like guides, videos. Don't forget, everybody's learning styles are different. So I don't like to read things, I like to watch a video. You can link to a YouTube video to show how somebody else has overcome the problem. Great, do that. That's an MVP of customer support. Everybody jumps on YouTube to find things about how they can overcome challenges and products. I think I've done some of my best DIY through YouTube videos. And start connecting your stack of critical business applications as well. And then 1,000 plus customers. It's about creating the process to use tools to drive productivity around it, segmenting your users and utilizing all of those. Measure your performance in customer experience and gain those customer insights to drive every product iteration and anything that you do beyond today. And obviously practice that empathy. Quick reminder on where we were, but there was 77. So in November 2022, just to kind of close out the Zendesk story part of this, yes, we were taken over by Hellman and Friedman and Permira, which were a consortium of PE firms. We've come back private. We fixed the share price at $77.5, and we are now a privately held company with a lot more free reign to do what we want within sales, marketing, streamline the organization to make sure that we are fit for further growth. And I am in no doubt that in maybe 4 to 5 years' time, we'll probably refloat after all of this crash that's going on, and that share price will climb again. I wanted to, that was a whistle-stop tour. And I hope there's been some few bits in there that have kind of added some value, or certainly asked a few questions of you and where you are right now, and hopefully giving you some ideas of what you should be doing next, certainly within your CX strategy to grow out the business that you're creating. I would love to open the floor to questions now. I think we've got 8 minutes since Anthony took a good chunk of this, so I'll be speaking to him later. But please go for it, Adam.
Yeah, you knew you were back, right? I guess listening to a lot of what you said, I think I've seen you speak before with Hobed, but how much of that company ethos and culture spun through to investor sentiment? Do you remember that? Is it ever spoken of that at a time investors got it, even before customers were telling them that they got it?
Investor sentiment before the customers. So I think Zendesk was in a pretty good position to have customers before they needed investors. But at an earlier stage, the investors that understood how big this could be and could see the market for it and could see that nobody else was actually playing in this field well, and it was the future, they were the ones that wanted in and wanted to be right by the founders' sides to help them grow it. Because yeah, absolutely, those investors that got it wanted to put their money where their mouth was. But it helped that we had to go on. Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, Jeremy. Yeah, as a quick follow-up, were there users that were investors and they came through the pipeline?
Okay. So again, at an earlier stage, yes. So it's actually one of the colleagues who had actually used part of their software who actually invested. Like the likes of Twitter, who took it on earlier, they didn't invest. Those kind of those big entities, no. But what they could see as soon as they got the first, when they got the Series A of 1.5 over in Boston from Charles River, that created market tension and created competition, because then Silicon Valley woke up to the fact that this was something that was coming and was needed, and therefore they had investors knocking on their door to invest, and that's where the 6 million came from. But no, none of those guys actually invested from an earlier stage in terms of users.
I'm going to take a quick question from Mikhail in the chat, and then Ganesh will go to you. Mikhail asked, how do you know, this is referring to the Zendesk price increase that you referenced, how do you know it was the price increase and not how the price increase was implemented that resulted in the backlash? Good question.
So it wasn't the way it was implemented, it was the price increase itself because of what was found on Twitter, what we had in terms of feedback. So it's quite clear how customers were reacting and why they were reacting. So that was how we knew. The big part of it was, yes, they then went back to the strategy of it to then understand how to make the increase, but not to blanket it. and did take another approach. So you could almost say that it affected the strategy for release, but it wasn't the main cause. Yeah.
Love Twitter for some honest feedback.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Ganesh, go ahead.
Hi, Jeremy. Nice to meet you. Thank you for your time.
No problem.
So I'm the co-founder of an app called Spin, which helps you find tennis partners nearby. And we also run leagues which connect people together. Now, actually, one of our first hires was actually customer service, and managing all the fights that people have on court in their leagues. Now, how the difficulty we have is how to incentivize this person, because product and sales, there's obvious targets. How do you incentivize someone to do better customer service? The only thing we can think of is to ask for reviews and get more reviews on the App Store. But I don't know. Have you got any ideas there, please?
Yeah, certainly. So the things that I'd be looking at, certainly within that person, is number of tickets solved. Now, this is I'm going to talk from a using customer service software point of view, but it's certainly something that you can add around the business itself. So yes, so CSAT scores, so customer satisfaction scores with every interaction, ticket volume and time to solve those tickets. So if a customer has a complaint, then if somebody can reduce the time that complaint takes to actually solve, that is a good indicator of somebody doing good customer service. Time to first response as well. That's something you can target them on. So if you decrease that time to customer service response, then again, it's back into that quick and seamless approach to customer interaction, which will then build your trust, will build brand reputation, et cetera, et cetera. And what else? CSAT scores we talked about, ticket we talked about. And I would also incentivize them on bringing insights to the team. I would incentivize them to bring what they've learned from the customers, from the front line, to then add into the product roadmap to tell you where you should be spending your money and make them integral to anything that you're doing within the org. So that's certainly where I'd be looking to incentivize them, to also put metrics around them and what they do in their role.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Any last questions?
Okay.
I have a last question. Oh no, Mikhail, you go for it.
Sure. I was just curious, how did you balance on the path? It was very interesting, the history, the actual, the prioritizing customer service versus the need for growth and the rapid growth, especially in certain stages.
So how did they do that?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the majority of the organization was focused in on customer experience and the customer-centric approach. We actually had a team of people who went out to get the investment and to organize the investment, because it's a full-time role. And as soon as you step away from that, then you'll lose it. So if you are going to go for investment and to scale at pace, then you need to carve out the time and the people to actually go and do that, so that the majority of people are still focused back on building revenue, building customers, building retention, and building the satisfaction within the customer base. So that's what Zendesk did. It was Mikhail, he was out there doing this as a full-time. He got loads of points and air miles on Delta, actually. So yeah, that's where I'll be focusing.
All right, we will wrap it there. We put in the chat the signups for office hours with Jeremy this Friday. I believe all of the slots are already taken. Sorry, there's a lot of siren in the background. Hopefully no one can hear it. But if they are, put your name at the bottom of the list, because sometimes we have dropouts, so we might be able to squeeze a few more of you on. We can stop the recording. And Jeremy, where can people find you afterwards?
Yeah, of course. Get me on LinkedIn. Jeremy Ambrose. I think I come up as VC partnerships or something. But grab me on there. And my email address, happy for anybody to get hold of me via email as well. I'm fairly responsive. So he says. I'm going to put that in the chat right now. So just grab me on email if you want me. But yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
also have details on how you can get a discount for Zendesk on the Hotbed platform as well under, I think it's under resources.
Mhm.
It will be right there. All
Yeah,
right,
you-
everyone.
Everybody gets the 6 months free, 15% off their first annual subscription, access to support. It's pretty good offer. So if you think if this has resonated with you, then yeah, go use the offer for sure.
Also perfect timing for this week because we were just talking about free trials with Anthony before you.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Awesome.
Okay, thanks so much, Jeremy.
Thanks all.